And so we have this beautiful opportunity to come into this dark hour. I mean, it is, how many of you think our nation needs revival? How many of you think that this is a more degenerate time than ever before? We have, just all kinds of, I thought about talking about some of the textbooks that I've seen, like the outline for some of the textbooks in California of what they're teaching children. And I thought, I can't even talk about that in church. They're teaching it to 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, but I can't mention it from a platform because it's so horrible. And this is the nation we have. Well, I want to tell you, Jonathan Edwards said that the 1730s, before the Great Awakening, he said it's a far more degenerate time than ever before. God comes when our nation is broken, when people have lost sight of who they are and what Jesus has done for them, and all that they understand is the world around them. He comes into that degenerate time, and he fills us with a knowledge of who Christ is. And all of a sudden, the Spirit of God comes, and he does what man cannot do. And all of a sudden, we have this unifying point. And it comes around, this is what revival looks like. This is what's happening in the midst of revival. There's a couple quotes that I just want to read from the Great Awakening. This is Jonathan Edwards when he was talking about the Northampton revival, which was kind of the precursor to the Great Awakening. He said, and then a concern about the great things of religion began. It became universal throughout the town, among old and young, and from the highest to the lowest, all seemed to be seized with a deep concern about their eternal salvations. It hit every sphere of society. It was the old, it was the young, it was the poor, it was the rich. It hit every part of society. Benjamin Franklin, how many of you know who Benjamin Franklin was, right? So he was not a man who was on board with the Great Awakening, but he was a publicist, he was a newspaper man, and he was friends with George Whitefield, who was, the premier evangelist itinerant in the Great Awakening. And this is what he said about it. He said, it was wonderful to see the change soon made in the manners of our inhabitants. From being thoughtless or indifferent about religion, it seemed as if all the world were growing religious, so that one could not walk through the town in an evening without hearing psalms sung in different families of every street. Can you imagine just going for an evening walk and you're just hearing worship music? It doesn't matter which street you walk down, there's worship and praise going on and you hear prayer going on. I can't wait. I can't wait for a revival that comes that is so powerful. That is so powerful, that is so wide-sweeping, that it is sweeping in the lost, and the people who are mocking God today will become his greatest evangelists tomorrow. Come on, I can't wait for this. And I'm telling you, the message I want to share today is it's our time to rise and shine. It is our time to stand up. It's time for the church to be counted. Not as a political force, but as a life-changing force in all of society, that when God comes, society is transformed. When God comes, our lives are transformed. That's what happens in the midst of revival. I don't know about you guys, but I remember studying the Great Awakening when I was in elementary school. When I had public textbooks, that there was such an impact on society that it was part of our history. American history saying this is what happened. Whether you agree with Christianity or not, they impacted society. That 300 years later, I was reading about it in my textbook. That's what I want to be a part of. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. I just want to talk about, there's so much political upheaval. There's so much going on in the world around us. And the reality is we can look for a savior in a political party, but that's not what he's called us to. He sent us a child. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. His government is increasing. Whatever is going on in our government, and I believe Christians need to be involved. I believe we need to be a part of it. Honestly, I watched the State of the Union address, and I just started praying that the Lord would send peacemakers. How about Just people who are willing to stand, not for one side or another, but they're willing to stand in righteousness for Christ. And so our faith needs to be in God, not a political party, not anything else that we might look to. Our faith needs to be in God and understand that God can use whomever he chooses to use. I mean, that's that place, what you were talking about, that testimony was so perfect that, all these fears, all these worries, and yet there's this perfect peace that he's the Prince of Shalom. And whatever turmoil is going on in our country, in our world, where there's natural disasters, fires in Australia, there's all kinds of evil that's happening, and yet the Prince of Peace is on the throne. And we look to him, and then we can rise up because we have studied the face of God. We don't rise up in fear. We rise up in an understanding and in a reflection of who he is. Arise and shine. We have been positioned for this hour. We really have been. I know that there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on, but oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be a part of what is happening in our nation, what's about to happen. We are to shine for the glory of God.